Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 100. Studio Steve back talking about the conference finals in the NBA. Let's start immediately with the Pacers and the Knicks. What I called was going to be the holy shit series, and the game did not disappoint. The Pacers did not disappoint. Let me just quickly run over a bunch of crazy things that happened towards the end of this game. I'm just going to rattle them off. If you watched the game, you were on the edge of your seat as I was, as everyone else was in MSG, and we're not disappointed and probably saw one of the best playoff games that has ever happened in your life and my life in NBA history. The holy shit series. Like I say, let's run through some of the things that happened. The incredible shooting, 3-point shooting of Nesmith. So the Pacers hit 6 3-pointers in a row in the last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter. Nesmith hit 5 of those. Really poor rotation from the Knicks on defense, getting around to those 3-pointers, including Cat, but we'll get to that in a little while. Nearly throwing the ball away at half court on the inbounds play. Josh Hart somehow regained his stability to grab that ball. A few possessions later, Brunson almost throws the ball away in the backcourt. It seemed to bounce and bounce and bounce all the way up to half court, really like in slow motion. And in my mind, I was like, there's going to be a Pacers player that just runs in out of nowhere and picks this up. No one did. New York recovered it. Game continued. Absolutely incredible, ballsy shot by Tyrese Halliburton, retreating to the 3-point line once the ball was knocked out of his hands. Some people say it looked like a double dribble. The ball, I think, was knocked out of his hands by Mikal Bridges. He looks up, sees Mitchell Robinson in front of him, decides, fuck this, I'm just going to turn around and retreat to the 3-point line and hoist up this shot that had probably the craziest bounce since Kawhi Leonard's multiple bounces, 2019 playoffs, Game 7 against Philadelphia 76ers. This thing bounced off the back of the rim, went all the way up as high as the shot clock, and then came all the way back down, swish to the bottom of the net. Like you couldn't have scripted it or drawn it or thrown it in any cleaner. It was absolutely fucking nuts. In overtime, the Miles Turner block after the Knicks score 4 in a row. And I was just like, okay, maybe the Knicks were just mucking about, and now they've got their offensive game back, and they're just going to go ahead and open this OT up, and they're going to run away with it. Really nice comeback, Pacers. Not going to happen. But 4 in a row. Jalen Brunson goes for this layup. Miles Turner gets a block on it. Again, some people thinking that it might have been a goaltend. If you're a Knicks fan, you're definitely saying that. I don't care. Wasn't called. Phenomenal play. Leading to the huge Andrew Nembhard 3 in the corner. He hadn't scored in a while, and then he just picks up and hits this 3-pointer from the corner with his feet barely behind the line. So let's talk about that for a second. The Tyrese Halliburton 3, supposed 3 that was called a 2, his toe was just over the line, just a smidge, kind of like the Kevin Durant shot a few years ago when he was in Brooklyn. And then a couple plays later in overtime, Nembhard shoots that 3 from the corner, his feet barely behind that line. So like the margins were so minute in this game. It's going to go one way or the other if a toe was in front or behind the line, if a goaltend is called or not called. That aside, the whole game, 18 ties, 14 lead changes. Knicks lead by 17 at one point. Not to forget mentioning, I should say. The Knicks leading by 14 with 2:51 left in the fourth quarter. Coaches' challenges have become such a big phenomenon across the league in the playoffs, especially. Pacers use theirs wisely. The huge coaches challenge with 30 seconds to go in the fourth, where OG and Pascal Siakam go for the 50-50 ball, which is in the air. Pascal gets a little higher, gets his hand on the ball. Pacers recover, no foul. Pacers go the other way, score. Then there is the defensive play where Andrew Nembhard tips the ball. It grazes Jalen Brunson's hand, grazes it enough that it's on video, conclusive enough to show you that it hits his hand, goes out of bounds. Pacers get the ball back. And then let's look at what the Knicks did with theirs. The Knicks threw away their coach's challenge early in the game off a Jalen Brunson offensive foul call. Didn't need to use it. Got to be wiser. Pacers and Rick Carlisle held on to their challenges, successfully used them. This has been a growing concern across the league throughout the playoffs this year with how coaches are using them. but when they're using them too early and then not getting that one back if it's not successful, you're hamstrung for the rest of the game. Terrible defensive possession by the Knicks when Obi Toppin inbound the ball, cut back door, untouched, unscathed until he got the dunk. And Mikal Bridges actually fouled him. It should have been an and one, but nobody was in the vicinity. That turns out to actually be the game-winning shot. It was a 1-point game at that point, at 136-135 for the Pacers. Toppin gets the dunk, 138. And that is pretty much the game. This game was absolutely nuts. It was incredible to watch. As I'm watching the game, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way the Pacers are coming back, right? Like they've done this already 3 times in the playoffs. There was this crazy stat, and I wish I wrote it down, but it's like 4 out of 1,400 teams have come back from 7-point deficit with less than a minute to go in the game in the history of the NBA. And the Pacers have done it 3 times in these playoffs. I was talking with a friend earlier this playoff run who was saying that he thinks the Knicks could go to the finals. They seem to be on this sort of like a fairy tale kind of run, and you know, everything seems to be going their way. Let's pause for a second and think about what the Pacers have done from the beginning of the playoffs to the end of game 1 in the conference finals. They kind of seem like the team of destiny. Who knows? I would love to see the Pacers and the Thunder in the finals. I think that would be such an entertaining finals, but we'll get there. This game, as I say, did not disappoint. There were a few things that I mentioned prior to game 1 that I wanted to look out for. And I just want to kind of go over those quickly because I think it is important to revisit some of these initial storylines that I drummed up here before the series started. So we were looking at the teams being healthy and the minutes played for the starters in these games. So the Knicks starters average 41 minutes a game, 41 minutes per player in that first game. Not too dissimilar from what they've been doing all year, but again, let's keep an eye on it. 41 minutes a game against this Pacers team in a 7-game series could wear you out pretty quickly. It did look like they were a little fatigued towards the end of that overtime period. The Pacers starters averaged 36 minutes a game, 36 minutes in that first game. The Knicks bench, which has been pretty lowly all season long, scoring 21 points a game, which is a league low, only scored 17 in that first one. The Pacers, of course, outscored them with the number of players they run through that rotation. They had 31 points off the bench. You know, I'm curious for the Knicks. They are only running 3 guys off the bench. Is Precious Achiuwa going to see any minutes? Like, I know he's not a game changer. I know he's not going to come in and turn the entire series around, but he is a good energy player. He was great with the Raptors, his energy off the bench. He was great for the Knicks last year in the playoffs, his energy off the bench. He gets to the offensive rebounds. You can get him on some lob dunks. He'll get in transition. At least he gives your starters a breather. He brings some energy off the floor. We'll see what happens. Tibbs seems pretty content to roll with the 5 guys, I guess 8 guys that he's been rolling with, the 5 guys riding really heavy minutes. So we'll see. We'll see what they do with that. The Pacers, on the other hand, of course, as they've done all season long, they had 10 different players who were averaging at least 19 minutes a game throughout the season. This game, they stayed with that recipe. They had 10 players that played. The bench players averaged 15 minutes in that first game. So all the things that both teams have stuck to and have done throughout the season seems to be what they're doing as far as game 1 was concerned anyway. So we'll see if these trend any way up or down or stay the same throughout the rest of the series. The Pacers, we were talking about their pace of play, and are they going to be able to go up and down the court the way they like to when New York is a team that loves to hold you in the half court and they like to try and turn that water off? Because the Pacers, as we know, anyone's watched them, they fly up and down the court on defense and offense, 94 feet both ways. So fast break points, Pacers outscored the Knicks 13-5. 5 lowly fast break points for the Knicks in that game. The Knicks did outscore the Pacers in the paint, as is pretty accustomed to how they play, 62-50. So we'll see how that goes continuing moving forward. One of the other things I was really interested in looking at in this series was Cat and whether or not he could keep his composure. I was talking about in that Boston series, he was starting to crack and he was starting to rattle a little bit. He was starting to let the game get to his head. One thing I did mention prior to the series was throughout the season, Cat has played phenomenally against the Pacers. He averaged 30 points and 11 rebounds, 46% from 3. I expected that to continue just based on the numbers and based on the fact that he shot so poorly against the Celtics. He's not going to have 2 bad series in a row. He is a good shooter, as much as he does complain and as much as he is a whiner. He played outstanding in that first game. He had 35 points, 12 rebounds, 4 of 8 from 3, only 1 turnover. Did have some defensive slip-ups late in that game. You could see him and OG kind of barking at each other back and forth on the bench. He also was going back and forth with Brunson a little bit. So we'll see if that continues. If he can continue this offensive streak, they are going to need that. Brunson is going to be Brunson. They're not really getting a lot off the bench. They're going to need Cat to keep his head in the game. He's an offensive producer. He tears the Pacers apart. He did that this game, and he's going to need to continue to do that if they want to make this a long series. The other thing I talked about prior to this was Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson was amazing in the last series. The Knicks were 30 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor, plus 18 with him on the floor, minus 11 with him off the floor. In this game, kind of a no-show. He played 26 minutes, 2 points, 8 rebounds, and was even on plus minus. So neither up nor down. Mikal Bridges was fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. 16, 6, and 5. He did have 3 turnovers. So we'll see which direction game 2 goes. Look, Knicks fans are going crazy. Stephen A. Smith, I'm sure, I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm sure he's lost his mind about what the Knicks are doing. He goes up and down so quickly. I'm not going to go too crazy and lose my mind and say that the Pacers are going to win 4 in a row and they're going to sweep them or anything like that. Let's not blow our load too quickly here. The Knicks are a great fucking team. They've played well all season long. This was very uncharacteristic. Like I say, if you go back and look at the margins that this game was won on, whether it was goaltend, whether it was Brunson's hand clipping the ball just a little bit for that ball to go out of bounds, the toes in front and behind the line on some of those 3-pointers that were made by Nembhard and by Tyrese Haliburton. Every single thing, 5 threes in a row by Nesmith, like all those things were like fucking crazy. Those don't happen every game. Right? Those don't happen every game. I don't suspect that every game is going to look like this. It's going to be exciting, but it won't look like this. I expect the Knicks to come out in game 2 with a lot of energy, with a lot to prove, and understanding. And you know, I said this prior to the series as well, that neither team is going to relax when it's a 14, 15, 20-point game. You've got to put the pedal down. You've got to get up by 30 points in order to comfortably win in this series, because both these teams are so capable of coming back from double-digit deficits. They've both done the same throughout the playoffs so far. I expect New York to come out and show some pride. I expect Mitchell Robinson to have a better game. You can't ask for more from Cat and from Jalen Brunson offensively. You're going to need some production from the rest of the guys. OG had some nice spurts, but again, like I say, this is kind of one of those miracle 1 in a million games that you've never seen before. The Pacers have done it, you know, not to this fashion, but they've done it 3 times already in this playoff. So I expect the next game to be closer. New York is at home. They're going to have the crowd behind them. The crowd was really quiet, though. I don't know if you were watching some of those free throws when Cat was at the line, when OG was at the line. The entire crowd was shushing. You could hear them from the television broadcast. You could hear them shushing each other, and it was fucking silent. You could hear a pin drop. I personally think that is more distracting as a shooter, especially if you're not a good shooter from the free throw line. That is more distracting when it's absolutely silent. At least have some chatter, but man, were they nervous. So I think that crowd is going to be nervous going into game 2. Hopefully they can rally behind their troops, but if Indiana breaks out to an early lead and that crowd gets restless and the Knicks aren't performing, it's going to be really interesting to see where things go. I still expect the series to go 6 or 7 games. I don't think game 1 is an indication that the Pacers have exposed something that, you know, that the Knicks are lacking and that the Knicks aren't going to come back. I still expect it to be a 6 or 7 game series. It's going to be really fun. If every game could be like this, all the better, although I don't think my blood pressure could take it. But what a game 1 of the Knicks and Pacers series, Eastern Conference Finals, everything that we would want as a sports fan and more. Let us jump over to the Western Conference Finals. After 2 games, OKC looks like OKC. This is the 68-win team that was dominant throughout the regular season. Best defense, best offense, has the MVP, got the trophy before the game, played like an MVP, only took 2 3-pointers, 38 points, one turnover or zero? I think it was one turnover. Just played fucking amazing. Just Shea just dialed it in. Just did everything he needed to do to propel that team to this 2-0 lead going into Minnesota, and honestly making the Wolves look pretty garbage, looking pretty rattled, right? Maybe garbage is an overstatement. That's a strong word. Just not looking very good, not very comfortable, not very confident. OKC's defense, their intention is to make you uncomfortable. OKC's defense is like a nagging girlfriend. They just nag and nag, just bother you until it fucking makes you crack. And that is what they did to Minnesota in game one. That's what they did to Minnesota in game two. Um, I'll quickly go over some numbers and some things that I've seen based on some of the pre-series determinations and thoughts that I had. Does Ant have that signature game in him? That was one of the things that I was talking about. Game one, only 13 field goal attempts, 18 points in total, 4 turnovers. So that first game, he didn't really play that well, and he didn't really play with any urgency. He's done this now like 3 times in the playoffs. There was once against the Lakers, there was once against Golden State, and now in game one of the Western Conference Finals, sort of lackadaisical, not really coming out with a lot of energy, not really coming out with a lot of force, not coming out with a lot of intention, driving to the basket, settling for a lot of 3-pointers. It just, I don't know what it is, but it's something seems a little off, and I'm not sure what that is. And you can't take anything away from OKC's defense. Their defense is fucking phenomenal, and perhaps that is the reason why he's not playing very well. So we'll see. Julius Randle in that first game, let's say, played amazing, 20 points in the first half. They needed a good game from Ant in game one. I feel like they let game one get away from them. Game one was winnable. They missed a lot of open threes. If Ant had a reasonable game, plus the Julius Randle game, maybe some of those bench guys get a little more inspired. They walk away with a victory in game one. It's a 1-1 series. Who knows? We'll see. Again, Ant game two, 32 points. So he scored 16 points in the first half, 18 total points in game one, 32 overall, 1 for 9 from 3, 4 for 17 in the series. So we'll see how that continues to go. When he played downhill and went to the hoop in game two, Ant looked great, and you can't really stop him at that. He's got to get back to that. He's got to get back to that if the three's not falling. Can Minnesota keep their composure? I was talking about how Julius Randle met the moment in the last series and really carried them on his back in a lot of those games. Composure wise, Minnesota so far, and again, not taking anything away from OKC's defense, but 17 turnovers in game one, 14 turnovers in game two. The Thunder have scored 53 points off of turnovers in the 2 games against Minnesota. So that's been the bread and butter for OKC all year, is turn the ball over, fast break, let's get some points. And they've been doing that so far sort of with ease, to be quite honest. Minnesota is being outscored. So OKC is plus 21 points per game, plus 3 on the rebounds, plus 9 on assists, 11 steals a game. They're all over the place. And they are, what was it, Brian Windhorst mentioned, their defense playing like a kraken with the tentacles everywhere. Honestly, that's sometimes what it seems like. They have hands at every passing lane. They're getting steals everywhere. They just are everywhere, left to right on the floor. They just take up so much goddamn space. Talking about the Wolves keeping their composure, Jaden McDaniels, who I think has upped his offensive game in the last couple of years, is they're going to need him on the floor. He's shooting the ball well from 3, but he is averaging 5.5 fouls a game. I mean, it's only 2 games so far, but they're isolating him on Shea one-on-one. One-on-one, Shea is going to get his numbers. I don't care who you are. And if Jaden McDaniels is the primary defender, 5.5 fouls a game so far out of the 2 games, not really working that well. So that's going to have to be something that they adjust. I think I mentioned prior to the series that Minnesota played a ton of zone, which was successful against OKC. They've yet to show that yet. Not really sure why. 2 games in now. In the fourth quarter of that game, game 2, McDaniels got blown by Shea, and then he kind of just seemingly gave him a shove and fouled him, to which he said afterwards, and this is an actual quote from Jaden McDaniels after the game, he said, "I just wanted to foul him. I wasn't even mad. I just had fouls to use." That is a sign of immaturity at this phase in the playoffs. I just had fouls to use is not a good enough excuse when you're playing the number 1 team in the league. In the Western Conference Finals, when you're 4 games away from the NBA Finals, you can't just You can't just throw this shit away like that. Got to be smart. Ant, speaking of that, skip media appearance after game 2. Ant's already been fined $430,000 this year. I expect that they'll probably fine him for missing his media availability after game 2. I thought it was a little weird after game 1, after letting that game sort of slip away, that he was looking at the stat sheet and smiling and laughing with Julius Randle during the media appearance. Again, what's there to laugh about? You're 4 games away from the finals. You lost the first one, which you should have won. It was within grasp. So, really, really keeping an eye on Minnesota's composure as we move forward. And talking about composure and talking about Ant getting to the hoop, Minnesota as a team, 26 for 87 on 3-pointers, 29%. That's fucking atrocious. They need to get to the paint. They need to get to the hoop. Clearly, the 3 isn't dropping. They are going back home for the next 2 games. Role players always play better at home. We'll see if that changes. And again, the zone defense, that was, I don't want to say an answer to Shea in the Denver series, but it certainly slowed him down and gave him a different look that he had to second guess himself a lot. He really had a lot of difficult shots that he took against that zone. The Wolves played amazing zone defense against him during the regular season. Haven't showed it yet. He is torching them one-on-one. OKC is torching them one-on-one on in every possession, in every position as well. They've got to look at that high double team up at half court, the way that they were blitzing Luka last year, the Timberwolves, and the way that they were doing it against Shea and OKC during the regular season. I feel like that we're going to start seeing the zone when they get back home in the next 2 games. Clearly, the one-on-one matchups aren't working. The other thing I was looking at from the Thunder's end, we were looking at the rebounding matchup. Minnesota's got tremendous size. OKC so far, +3 on the boards. Rudy Gobert, I've seen a lot of Timberwolves games. I've seen a lot of Rudy Gobert games. I know he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. And I know that the numbers probably support it. Fuck, I just don't. Whenever I watch that guy play, I'm just like, he's there. He's on the floor. It doesn't impact the game. He's not like a Ben Wallace or a Dennis Rodman or a real feisty defender. Fuck, he's not even Alex Caruso. Like, he just doesn't impact the game. His minutes were reduced to 25 minutes a game. He's averaging 3 points and 6 rebounds in this series. I think he would be much better suited with the zone defense, anchoring the zone in the middle on a 2-3 or whatever kind of zone they want to run. The leading rebounders, oddly enough, in this series are J-Dub and Ant, who are both averaging 9 a game. So we'll see if any of the bigs want to pick up some rebounds as the series move forward. Can OKC hit threes as the answer to Minnesota's zone? Again, some of these points that I brought up prior to the series were contingent on the fact that Minnesota was going to run a zone, but they haven't. On that note, anyhow, Thunder aren't really shooting the 3 that well either. They're only shooting 37% on threes as a team. Everyone's looking a little shaky from outside, but I guess that really doesn't matter when your defense is as good as it is and they're getting out in the break and they've got Shea. All their 3 big stars are playing amazingly in comparison to what Minnesota's doing. And the other thing I thought about as well was if in fact Minnesota played a lot of zone defense and they were pressuring Shea to get him off the ball, what the half-court offense would look like for OKC. Here's a wild statistic, and shout out to J-Dub, because J-Dub had a pretty meh start to the playoffs. He had the first 6 games against Denver were meh. He had like 1 good game out of those, and then game 7 he played amazing. Credit to him for in his media conference talking about how he felt like he lost them game 6 because of his missed shots. Comes back, has a great game 7 against Denver, and has just carried that through for the next 2 games, the first 2 games of this series. J-Dub has tallied 45 points total in the first 2 games of the series. 45 points, 18 rebounds, 10 assists, 0 turnovers. He's playing fucking tremendous basketball. Fast break points for the OKC Thunder, 28-9 for Minnesota. Points in the paint, OKC, 112. Minnesota, 64. Minnesota's averaging 95 points per game in this series. Not looking great. Not going to lie. Not looking great. They're going to have to rally and get back home and make some major changes. They're going to have to play with some intensity. some enthusiasm. They just don't look like they have enough punch. They don't look like they have enough emotion. They're not meeting the moment. And I hope that they have something at home that's going to turn that around for them, because if they don't, Thunder might just sweep these motherfuckers the way it's looking right now. I'd love to see a 6 or 7 game series. As a sports fan, like I say, make it exciting, Minnesota. That's all I'm saying. The other thing I talked about was the X factor, and I thought this is more of an X factors. It's almost like a mini 3 instead of the big 3. And the mini 3, if you will, for Minnesota was DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Through the first 2 games of this series, Dante DiVincenzo was averaging 8 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 turnovers, and only shooting 27% from 3, which is why they brought him over to this team, was for his 3-point shooting. Naz Reid, traditionally, is a great player, reigning 6th man of the year from last season, averaging 7 points, 8 rebounds, 0% from 3, 0 for 12 in the series. Not looking good, Naz. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, shout out, Canadian content, 12 points a game, 2 rebounds, 1 assists. I guess sort of doing what you would expect him to do. The 3 of them are combined to average 6 turnovers a game, though, so that's going to have to change. OKC, on the other hand, their mini 3, if you will, I had were Cason Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, and Jay Will, the other Jalen Williams. Jay Will hasn't even touched the floor. He hasn't even seen this series. He played like 1 game against Denver. Aaron Wiggins only playing 11 minutes a game. Cason Wallace, his stats are insignificant to his impact on the floor. Averaging 5 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds. But what he does defensively and what he does on the fast break, he's one of those guys that you don't see it on the stat sheet all the time, sort of like Draymond Green. OKC's big 3, though, carrying the load. SGA averaging 34 points a game. J-Dub, 22 points a game. Chet, 18 points a game. They're just fucking dominating. Those 3 guys are dominating the Timberwolves. I would be so surprised if the Timberwolves show up for game 3 and don't play a zone. It will blow my mind away if they don't play the zone defense. Clearly, the man-to-man defense is getting exposed, and they are getting lit up. They're going to have to change something. Like I say, they're going to have to change it quick, or else this series is going to wrap up pretty fast. Whew, that's a lot. Game 2 goes today. What day is it today? Today is the 23rd of May. Game 2 for the Pacers-Knicks coming up in just a few hours. It's noontime here, Pacific, for me on the West Coast. And I can't wait for Game 2. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. If Game 1 is an indication of what the rest of the series is going to look like, we're in for a fucking treat. If the rest of the series sucks, at least Game 1 was amazing. But I feel like the series is going to be fantastic. Hopefully it carries with the same energy as Game 1. And hopefully Minnesota can come through and bring some spark, because I would love to see a good series there. Or also, though, I'm biased. OKC is like my favorite team to watch. I would say OKC and Indiana are like my favorite teams to watch, which is why I want to see them in the finals. But OKC is my favorite team because Shea's my favorite player. He's Canadian. I'm Canadian. He's the MVP. He's the fucking man. So I would also love for them to just sweep and win 4-0 and get a bunch of rest while the Knicks and Pacers demolish each other. And then get a rested Thunder team in the finals. And hopefully they can silence all the critics who said they were too young. The Shea's not good enough. A lot of critics were even talking about whether Shea should win the MVP. Absolutely ludicrous. Jokic is amazing. Can't take anything away from him, but come on now, y'all. Why you gotta hate? Anyways, Game 2 today, Pacers-Knicks. Studio Steve checking in, keeping up to date with the Western Conference, Eastern Conference finals for the rest of the way. And I'll bring you all the information, all the details as the series move forward. Thank you again for tuning in. Steven Samuel saying peace.